So I began this live stream with talking with my discussion with American Neo-Reactionary. By the way, I guess that is going to come back on this platform. And in that, he was talking about there's all kinds of differences within the dissident right about tactics, about how do we get from point A, which is a really bad point, right? I say this pretty regularly. It's been a while since I've said it. I used to say it every episode, that we are watching this constitutional republic change into a liberal democracy while simultaneously watching this liberal democracy fail. That to me is the most accurate description of what we're watching. Now, to be fair, and a lot of people have pointed this out, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants when I say this because they brought it to my attention. This has been going on for some time, and it's complicated. Do we live in a pure democracy? That's a little bit of a hard one because the corporations have power. Okay. I mean, I love capitalism. I do. I think that there's really something to be said for the people that get out there, work hard, and build huge multi-million-dollar businesses. That's awesome. But there are bad people out there, malefactors. I mean, George Soros does exist, right? Mark Zuckerberg did fortify the election, right? So there are people that can do wrong. So you've got those people. But the big thing, even more than corporations, is the managerial elite. The managerial class, the unelected bureaucrats in Washington, D.C., for example, have a lot more power than the president. I mean, when you look at the power that George Washington had, you look from those founders and framers of our country, then you look at Teddy Roosevelt down to Woodrow Wilson and Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Don't like these guys, but stuff got done. They had a lot of power. I think a big problem that the average voter, a big mistake they make, is they walk into the voting booth thinking they're voting for Donald Trump, thinking he's going to wield power like FDR did. Instead, he's not governing that way. He's governing more like George Bush or Ronald Reagan or anyone, any Republican post-Watergate. And that really hurt the conservative movement, was Watergate, because unfortunately Nixon let a lot of people down. That's for a future episode. So with all that being said, to tie things back now, I began this episode with my discussion with American Neo-Reactionary. He talked about differences of tactics. And I was very clear, this was a few episodes ago, when I talked about the importance of being careful while gatekeeping, that there are people that I embrace, people that do care about this country, people that want to put the country first. And then there's bad actors. There are malefactors. There are people who posture like they're actually conservative, that they're an alternative to the left, to the mainstream media. And they're really not. And in ways, I would argue, they are worse. And they're worse for the following reasons. The devil you do know, I would argue, is safer than the devil you don't know. And why is that? Because the devil you do know, at least to an extent, is predictable. We can look at the left, what the left is doing, and hate it. But they're in a different party. They're in a different movement. We understand that they're the enemy. It's different when someone calls themselves conservative and sells us out. They call themselves Republican. They call themselves right-wing. And all they do is benefit the military-industrial complex while saying they don't. And sells us out on so many issues. Trade, immigration, and abortion come to mind. So for that reason, I want to talk to you guys, and I promise this will make sense in a minute, about what's going on with Hurricane Helene. So as many of you know, I was not making YouTube shorts during the week because I had no power. I was posting to YouTube. You can now do posts to YouTube, which look like a tweet almost, or a Facebook post, explaining, guys, I have no power, not sure if we're going to have an episode. I'm very glad that my power came back on Thursday, and I was able to go live today to you guys, because for the longest time, just wasn't possible. It went out Friday, early Friday morning, when the hurricane hit my part of South Carolina. And guys, I'm one of the lucky ones. No one in my family is hurt. I'm not hurt. And my property is not hurt. My house and the people that I love are safe. North Carolina and other parts of South Carolina, besides my part of South Carolina, have been flooded. Trees are down. People have lost their houses, their property, in the sense of like their fences and things like that. Flooding has damaged everything. They're dealing with water damage. They've lost their vehicles, and in some cases, they've lost their lives. I talked to a gentleman this past week who has a friend in the National Guard, said they went up in North Carolina, right near the border, at a North Carolina border town, pulled out 88 bodies. And then as they went deeper into North Carolina, it was even worse. So I made it out pretty easy, and I thank the Lord for that. It is him who deserves glory and honor and praise. So we have all this going on, and it's funny because I remember a while ago there was and again, I promise I'm getting back to what I opened with saying. There was a video I watched a long time ago of Glenn Beck talking to Tucker Carlson right after the Mar-a-Lago raid, and he said, "Where are the Republicans?" And I find it's useful to use that term because the thing is, with what's going on in the states right now, where are the Republicans? So you have the Speaker of the House, and everyone turned to him, right? Because I can't say it without laughing. The California guy. Oh my goodness. McCarthy. Horrible disaster. Worst speaker we've had. So then we think, oh, we're going to get Johnson in there, and oh, you better watch. Johnson's a MAGA Republican. The mainstream media went nuts. People on Newsmax. Newsmax is supposed to be a right-wing source, right? No, there's people writing on Newsmax crying about, oh, this guy's a Christian nationalist. He's an extremist. He's going to make everything horrible. He worships Trump. He argued that 2020 was fake. And so everyone was freaking out. I'm looking at this saying, well, okay, maybe Mike Johnson's going to be a really good Speaker of the House then. What did he do? Did he prioritize the border? Did he prioritize America's standing in the world, our foreign policy? He said that he would. But instead, you know what he did? He sent many billions, 60 billion to Ukraine, almost that much to Israel, almost 10 billion, about 8.9 billion to Taiwan, and a piddling amount to our southern border. So remember this. This is important to remember. I know I'm going all over. Whenever Walz says on the debate stage against J.D. Vance, well, we had a deal, and for some reason Donald Trump said don't accept the deal. That's because it wasn't a deal that would actually fix the issue, the deal for our southern border that they were proposing, that the Democrats got on board. You know, it should always worry you when the Democrats are on board with something. You should say, well, wait a second. So if this deal is bipartisan, this is something that the left, the uniparty, loves to say is, well, this deal is bipartisan. You should always say, well, wait a second. This is because the Rhino faction and the Democrats are getting together and pushing a bad bill. And that's what they did with the border policy. So in the end, that bad deal didn't even go through. What did go through was even more watered down, just a piddling amount at our southern border. So 60 billion to Ukraine, more than that, because that was just the most recent. Then 40 billion to Israel, 8.9 billion to Taiwan, and a couple million to our border. Probably to go to illegal immigrants. So you have that, and now you have this hurricane going on. And I saw this, and I have to share it with you because, dadgummit, it's so good. So far this year, the United States has given $24 billion to Ukraine, $11.3 billion to Israel. Okay, so I was talking about a former deal. That was more like 2023, I suppose. 1.9 billion to Ethiopia, 1.6 billion to Jordan, 1.4 billion to Egypt, 1.1 billion to Afghanistan, 1.1 billion to Somalia, 1 billion to Yemen, 987 million to Congo, 896 million to Syria, $9,000 per illegal immigrant that has entered the U.S. And Americans who have lost everything to Hurricane Helene will be getting $750 courtesy of FEMA. Is it possible for you to be an American that actually gives a crap about other people and not be enraged when you read that? I would argue no. If you're a good faith actor, I would argue no. What we're seeing right now, and this is why I began with talking about gatekeeping and the importance of calling out our enemies. And again, allying with our friends, people that are actually right-wing, and embracing them, and then calling out and attacking our enemies, is because of this right here. The Blaze reports, Lindsey Graham says, I've been going all over South Carolina like most people. I haven't slept much. But look what's going on in Israel. We have to help our friends to keep the war over there from coming here. And that was reported by The Blaze. So I want to say again, is it possible to read that while you're someone that's acting in good faith and not to be furious? What is he thinking? Don't take my word for it. I got the video on standby. Let's listen.
It looks like we've had a breakthrough, but there's no sense that the urgency that we need is missing. I promise you, President Trump would be all over this. Starlink has been a godsend. So I hope people are looking at what's happening here. You can thank Trump and Elon for that. You talk about money.
You can thank Donald Trump and Elon Musk for that.
But look, you know, I've been going all over South Carolina like most people. I hadn't slept much. But look what's going on in Israel. Our friends in Israel are surrounded by people that want to kill them, destroy them, a second Holocaust in the making. And Biden says be proportional. What is the proportional response to people who want to kill you and your family? God. They're running out of ammunition in Israel. We have to help our friends to keep the war over there from coming here.
They're willing to pay for the weapons.
Our economy is in shambles. They have been slow walking weapons in Ukraine. The Ukrainians have been doing all the fighting. The border is broken. They care more about illegal immigrants than they do anything else, it appears to be. And this needs to stop. And how do you stop it? November the 5th. If you don't do something about it November the 5th, we got nobody to blame but ourselves as the American people.
So I hope that you see that and think to yourselves, who is this guy actually serving? Whose interests? Is it Raytheon? Is it Lockheed Martin? What the heck does this have to do with over 4 million people in North and South Carolina without power?